So let's now start working on our to-dos. Okay, I'm just going to create a new container here. So for now, I'm going to containers, new folder. Let's call it to-dos. What? Oh, I already have that folder, so to-dos. And now here, I'm just going to do some basic styling. So import style from styled components. And for now, I'm just going to create a wrapper. So const wrapper, it's a style div with the width to 100%. And remember that we have our outer div that is displaying flex and aligning items to the center, but our to-dos, we want them to start at the top. So in this wrapper, I'm just going to write align self flex start. Okay, and I'm just going to give it some background for now. So background color, and I think I'm going to use, and again, this isn't really about styling, so I'm just going to use, for example, let's use let's try this main light, and you can change this and use whatever you want and feel like. Just going to use this. So let's now use our wrapper here. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so height 100%, min height 100%, and I don't think this is going to fix our problem. Yeah, so what we need to do is, for example, yeah, we can do that. We can remove the align cell from here, so it will stretch now. So we can say align self stretch, I think, and it will, since the outer div is, what's going on? Why are you not working? Not stretching, why? Align self stretch, it's not stretching. So height 100%, min height 100%. Maybe if we put it display flex, yeah, display flex should fix it. Oh, okay. We need to give it the min height, should be 100. Let's make calc to calculate, and let's put the min height will be, so 100 viewport height minus our nav height, and our nav height, if you remember, is 6 rem. So minus 6 rem. Now it should work. Okay. Now what we can do is align self. We can say start flex start still. So flex start. Okay, so we have our outer div. Let's now inside here maybe put some adding, saying let's import our adding. So import adding from, and it's on 1 to out components UI adding. Just doing some basic styling here, and let's say our adding will be your to-dos. Let's just say your to-dos, and let's make it size. Remember, we have this component receiving this prop, so size maybe h1. Let's make color white. Let's see. Okay, let's center this. So here we can say play flex, align items column, right? Because we will have more things column, and let's make now align items to the center, not align items, justify. It's not align items, flex direction, and now it's align item center. Now it should be here. Okay, let's give it some, maybe some some padding. So let's say padding, and I'm just going to give it to the top. I'm not going to give it to the sides. Okay. And actually what we can do, yeah, let's just leave it like this. And let's now import our, if you remember, we have our container here, right? So let's import it. So let's go here and let's import, name the export, so container from son I order components, layout, elements. Okay. And let's wrap this in a container so it doesn't go past our 140 RAM. Okay, so now we have our container here, and now we can actually remove this from here. We don't need it anymore. Neither we need this. Okay, so now we have our to-dos, our wrapper here. Okay, so it will not stretch longer than this. Okay, so now let's start centering this and doing some styling here for the to-do. Now we need to wrap all our content here inside our container in another div, because we could make the container, for example, display flex and align the items to the center, but we might want to, in this project, it actually doesn't matter, but you might, for example, want to reuse this on, and actually it matters because we are using our container here, right? And if we make it display flex, then it will mess up our nav bar, right? So the thing we can do is we can say, for example, inner wrapper. Now it's a styled.div, and now here we can make it display flex. We can give it some padding. So for example, let's give it padding of 3 RAM for RAM. Let's make it now here we can make it flex direction column, right? Because we have our title and then we'll want to have our to-dos under it and maybe a button to add more to-dos. So flex direction column, and we can say align items to the center. Okay, and now it should be kind of good. So we can say our inner wrapper here, we can pass that in and let's see. Okay, looking better. Maybe we can give it some more padding at the top. So maybe we can give it, for example, 5. Yeah, 5. Let's give it 5. 5. Okay, so now what we can start to do is maybe put a button under here saying add to do. And then when we click on that button, we can reuse our pop-up, remember, to pop up maybe a form, right, with an input where we can write our to-do and add it to our Firestore. I'm just going to duplicate this heading for now and make it a smaller one. So all your to-dos, all you have to do for now. Okay, let's remove the margin from the top one, so no margin. Okay, let's make this bold. Okay, looking good. Let's now reuse our button here that will trigger the pop-up, and then we can start getting the to-dos from our Firestore and start showing them here. So let's do that next. Let's start working on our pop-up. And to do that, if you remember it, so let's go to our to-dos. We want to put it here. And we already used a pop-up, if you remember, on our edit profile. Here we have our pop-up. So it's a model, right? So we can reuse that. We already have this component, the model that will be opened when we have to create some state to set it open. So what we can do is here, we can import the use state, and inside here Actually, let's extract this. Yeah, I think we should extract this to another component. So the whole thing to add pop-ups, we should to add to-dos, we should extract this to another component. So inside our to-dos folder, what we can do is here we have our old to-dos, and let's create a new folder inside that called, for example, add to-do.js. And now here we can create a file called add to-do.js, and this is a React arrow function component. And here we can receive the state, right? So if it's opened or not, and we can already import the use state. And here we can already say const is we can use the state. So use state, and it can be is opened, and we will have a function to change it. And the default state, okay, we can basically, yeah, let's remove this from here, and let's have our button here, right? So on our add to do, we will have our button. We still need this state, so default is false. Let's now import our button from, and it's from components. So components /UI, and we put it on form, even though it shouldn't be there. Forms button. And here we can render our button, right? So maybe add to do, right? And this is just a button. So this button, if we go to it, let's see what it receives, the children. So what will render if it's disabled or not. The loading, which here doesn't make any sense. We should, if we want to contain it or not, I think we should here. And the color can be red main. Let's put it main. So let's say color. Wait a bit. So color main, return color main dark, or else it's light. Let's try main and see. The color main contain. Okay, so we have our add to do. We still need to render our pop-up here, but let's import it already here. So we can import add to do from, and it's add to do on our to-dos, and this should actually be outside. Okay, so import add to do from /. Oh, this is not, I was wondering, this is not .js, so it's only add to do. So add to do /add to do, close it. Now we can render this container, this component here. Okay, let's see how it looks. Okay, so now we have our add to do here. What more can we do? And I'm not going to style it that much. I don't like the shadow here, but for now this will have to do. So what can we do here? We have this margin, which maybe we can decrease. So this is the margin of our addings. Yeah, this is the margin from our addings. We can decrease that a bit. So let's go to our addings. And here on our base styles, we have margin bottom. If no margin, 0. Otherwise, let's make it 3. Okay, looks better now. So now we have this button, and what we have to do is when we click it, we will open the pop-up that will basically have an input so we can add our to-dos. So let's do that next. Let's start working on our pop-up now. So we have this button. What we have to do is basically, let's close this here. We can basically copy this model. All right, so let's copy the model, and let's go to here. And what we can basically do is we can render it, the model, beside as a sibling to the button, even though it will not show because our model is position absolute, if you remember. And initially, if you don't pass it the property is opened, it will stay closed. I mean, the property opened, it will stay closed, right? So what we can render it here, and we have our state here that will trigger it will say that if the pop-up should open or not. So let's say the model is open is our state. To change the model, when we close, and remember our model receives this close prop, and what that close prop will do is it will pass it to our backdrop that will be rendered with the model, so that black background. And what we need to do is to change this state here to false, right, when the user clicks on that black background that will be rendered. Here on our heading we can say add your new to-do, and another heading we have under it, the small one, we can say type your to-do and press add, for example. And then we have this buttons wrapper, if you remember, and this buttons wrapper, we use it so we could have our buttons side by side. And here I still want two buttons, right? I want the user to be able to add a to-do or to cancel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that buttons wrapper from here, and I'm going to paste it here. It's a style component, right? So we need to import style from style components. We also need to import our heading, so import heading from, and it's on components, so /components/UI/heading/heading. We can import our model, so import model from, and it's on not here, components, so components, it's on UI, and it's on model, so model. And we can already import our messages, right, because we want to show some message if it fails or if it succeeds. And what we can do if it succeeds is we can close the model, right? So we can do that, and let's just show an error if something goes wrong. We need this message wrapper, right, to set the position of the error to absolute, and avoid our pop-up from growing. So we can go to our profile and we can copy that message wrapper here. We might need to adjust it. And again, this message wrapper, we are using it a lot. We could take it out from the components and put it on our elements and just import it. But I'm not going to do that for now. You can do it if you want. So what we need more on our add to do, we need to pass this function that will change the state of the pop-up, yeah, if it should be opened or not. We can pass it to our button here. So we are rendering a cancel button inside our model that we can say that on click will make the set is open to false. We need to import our error message that will show an error if something fails. We don't need that for now, so I'm just going to comment. We will use that when we make our action creator to send the to-do. And on our button on click here, it will run our action creator to add the to-do, right? So I'm just gonna comment that for now. And this will be our loading state. So when we are inserting the to-do, we need to disable the button and set loading to true. So I'm just gonna copy that for now too, right? And the color doesn't need to be red. We can set it to main. And okay, it looks good. And here, so besides the title and after the title, we need to render our input. So let's just write input will be here. Okay, input will be here. So let's see how this is looking. We got no errors. Let's go to our page. It should open the pop-up. It's not opening. Why is it not opening? So we are passing the property of our to-do. And here, when we click, oh, right, when we click on this button, have to do, we need to change this state to true, right? So let's make it here. We can say on click will be a callback function that will set is opened to true, correct? Now it should be working. Add to do, it opens. We can cancel here. We can cancel on the outside if we click it, right? Because we pass that to the model here, and the model will then pass it to the backdrop. So we have this, cancel. We should change this title, and we should put our input here. So that let's do that next. Let's start working on our input, and it's basically going to be a formic, right? Again, just with one item. So to not keep writing the same thing over and over again, we can go to our login, for example, which has a small form, right? And we can copy, for example, we need to import formic and field. So let's import here at the top formic and field. We are going to need that. We're going to need our input. So import input from, and it's on components. So components, UI, forms, input. What we need more? We need our messages to show the errors. So import message from, and its components, UI, message. Okay, what we need more? We need the op, right? So we need the op to verify the form. So let's import that at the top. And now we can copy our form. I'm not going to copy the schema for now. So in our component, we need this formic. So here, where we need our input here, I'm going to paste this, okay? And now we can start see what we need and what we don't need from here. So initial values we can delete already and just make the to do, right? It's the only thing we need. The validation schema, we can call it to do schema and make it a second. So to do schema. On the submit, we will send our to do here. We need our form wrapper, so we can import that already. Actually, we don't need our form wrapper here. Remember our form wrapper? It's just that blue. So if you go here, it's that blue box that we use on login. We don't need that here, right? We don't, because we already have our pop-up. So we can delete this. We can delete this heading too and this heading too. We just need our form, really. So we can delete this form wrapper. Okay, we just need our form. So our form is here, that we need to import. Remember that is, we go to our elements. Our form is just the style form from formic, right? Just the style form. So we need to import our style form. So let's go to our to-dos and let's import that. So import style form, import style form from, and it's on our elements again, and this maybe shouldn't be here, should be on components form, but for now let's just leave it. Okay, style form. So we have our style form. On the fields we can already delete this one. We can have this one, and the type will be text and the name will be to do, and we can say here write your to do. The button here, we don't want this button here, right? Because we will have our two buttons here that we already have. We just need to make the type submit down there. So we can cut this and we can paste this here. We can actually move this buttons wrapper. We can move that to inside our styled form. And the only reason I'm going to do this is to have access to this is valid and is submitting, okay? So I can disable the button if the form is not valid. So on our submit here, on our add to do button right here, right? The disabled will be if the user is submitting or if the form is not valid. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that here. And now I can delete this button already. Now we have our input, our buttons. This we don't need because our button is the type submit, so it will just submit the form. So we can delete this. The loading we can use, right, to show adding to do while it's adding, and when the adding is successful, we can close our pop-up, or if it fails, we will show our error down there. So we need this loading when we have our action created, right? So let's leave that commented for now. So add to do, our cancel will just close the pop-up. This we don't need, our custom link we don't need here. And our error we need, but let's just comment that for now. And we can delete the error from here. Okay, now we should have our form was failing, did not contain a default export. Okay, this is a named export, right? This is a named export. To-do scheme is not defined, of course, so we can go to our login. We can copy this, and here we can just paste this and call it to-do schema, and this is not email, this is to-do, and this is not the type email. It can be required, of course it has to be required, so the to-do is required. And let's not pass a max, but let's pass a min length of remove this comma here, of for example 4 characters, I don't know, too short, so too short. And now we should have our form. See, okay, now we have our form. We could style this better, and we can probably let's make this button the same color as this at least. And I think to do that, we just go to our button, and if we don't pass any color, I think it will default to that. Let's see. No, it's okay. Let's just leave it. Let's just leave it how it was. We could change our input to receive colors too, but I'm just going to leave it like this. So this is required. We can submit. Still too short, too short, too short, and now we can submit. Okay, so now we have our form here. We could also tweak the padding here a little bit. For example, here we could maybe decrease this padding from the bottom, but I'm just going to leave it like it is. This isn't really about styling, okay? So we can start submitting our to-do, so let's do that next. So to add a to-do, you can see on the documentation of that package, the React Redux Firebase, that you can basically wrap your component with Firestore iOrder component, and you can, for example, send the to-do here on the component, but since we are using Redux and we have the get Firestore instance on our action creators, I'm actually going to use an action creator, and because it will be easy for us to deal with errors and loaders and everything, it's basically what we've been doing so far, so it's more of the same. So to do that, I'm going to create a new reducer, right? Because right now we have the auth reducer, but it doesn't make sense that we use the same reducer, right? So here I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it todos reducer.js, and here I'm going to import everything as actions from, and you can, for example, create several files for actions. So you have actions to auth and actions for the to-dos, but I'm just going to leave it like this. And then here we have our reducer, and again I just use that snippet, just give me a const with the initial state and the reducer. So the initial state, we can say error null, and the loading false, so more of the same. What can we do now? We can go to our all action types, and we can say export const, and we can say add to do start, right? And it will be oops, add to do start, and maybe here we should rename this to profile delete, but I'm just gonna leave it like that. And on the when we are dealing with the deleting to-dos, I'm just gonna name it to-do delete. So now we add to-do start, we add to-do success, and we add to-do fail, right? We don't need the end because we can just set the loading to false on the success and on the fail too, right? So now we have these 3 action types. We can go to our to-dos reducer and we can say in case of the actions, and here it's not actions, actual is as action. What have I named it here? I named it actions, but it's from the action types, yeah, not the actions themselves. So let's import the action types. So it's from actions / action types. And now in case it's actions dot to add to do start, what we're going to do, we spread the state, but we set the loading to true. In case, and this is just more of the same, let's just copy and paste this. In case to do success, we set the loading to false and the error to false, remember. And in case to do fail, we set the loading to false and we set error to the payload that we will send on our action creator. Okay, so we have our to-dos reducer for now. Now we need to hook it up to our store, remember? So let's go to, if you remember, to our root reducer. It's here. We are using the auth reducer here, but now we need the to-dos reducer. So let's import to-dos reducer from it's on the same folder. Now we can say here a new key like to-dos will be the to-dos reducer, comma, and now we should have our to-dos in our store. Let's check it. Go to our state. Okay, we have our to-dos here. So now we can start working on our action to dispatch the added to do action creator when we click on that button and pass it the data. Let's do that next. So let's start working on our action creator to send the data, I mean the to do, and I'm going to create a new file on actions called to do actions.js, and here I'm going to import everything as actions from, just so I have the action types here, and I'm going to close this. I have a lot of stuff, so we don't need this for now. The auth actions, we don't need them either. And we can close this too, and our login, we can close it. We can close this. Okay, so we have our to-dos actions, and now add a to-do, and this is export const add to-do that will receive the data, right? So the to-do itself, and will return an action, will be asynchronous, right? So we can wait for the to-do to be added. It gets the dispatch, the get state, and here we destructor the get firestore, and this returns. Okay, and now here we can, for example, const firestore like we've been doing equals to get firestore. Now here we will try to send the to do, and if it fails we will catch it, the error, and we will dispatch an action with the type of actions.add to do fail, and on the payload we will send error.message. Here we can dispatch the start, so dispatch type actions.add to the start, and now here if everything goes okay we can dispatch the success. Okay, so let's now try to send it to do. The data is an object, remember, and the name of the property we want to add is called to do. Okay, so here it's an object, and on data.todo it will be our to do. So if you remember here on the firestore, we can say firestore dot collection, and now I'm going to call this collection to do's. Now we can say dot doc, right? It's the documents inside this collection, and now here I want the document to be the user ID. Okay, what I want to do is here I have the users, and now I have to want a new collection here called Todos, and then the document, it will be the user ID for each user. Okay, so each user will have a document on the Todos, and then here we will have an array with all of their to-dos. Okay, and I'm going to do, we could for example have the to-dos collection and have all the to-dos from all users here, and then add the user ID on the to-do itself. But then when we pull the data from Firestore, we would need to pull all the to-dos, and that doesn't make any sense, right? It makes sense that we can just pull the to-dos from the user we are currently logged in. Okay, so, and to get user ID, remember, we can get the access to the get state here. Okay, or we can use the get Firebase here, and we can say firebase.auth.current user, remember, and that will have, inside that we'll have our user ID. But we can just say user ID, and that equals to get state, get state dot, and it's on Firebase, if you remember. So if you go here on our state, on Firebase, on auth, then we have our UID. So firebase.auth.uid, this should be our user ID. So on the collection, user ID, and now I'm going to set, and this is an object, right? And here is the to-dos from this user, and this here will be an array. Okay, this is where we will have all their to-dos. Okay, so I read the Firestore documentation, and they actually, what I was doing is wrong. They actually now have this matched, so array union, and that will basically add a new item to the array if it doesn't exist. And they also have, I think it is remove, what is it? Yeah, array remove, which we will remove an array, an item from the array. But this limits us because this only works with only like normal arrays. If you have an object inside an array, you don't have a form to like delete just the object from the array. So I will show you what I mean in a second. So let's try to use this and see how it gets added to our Firestore. To do that, I'm going to go to my add to do. I'm importing my actions from, and it's from our store. So let's go to our store / actions. Okay, we need to export our action, right? So it's add to do, and now here it's not from auth actions anymore. So we need export add to do from, and it's to do actions. So export, so we have our action exported. Let's now hook it up, this component, to Redux. Okay, so Redux here, the connect, we have our action. So we now need the dispatch to props. So let's use this and the extension again. Dispatch to props, add to do will be on actions dot add to do. Now here, for now we don't want to give it to pass state from our Redux store to the component. So on the first argument we say null because we don't have anything here, we are not passing this. And then here we can say map dispatch to props. And now when we click on the add to do, so here when the form is submitted we can await, and now we need to receive it here. So add to do, our action creator is here, now await, and we execute it and we pass it to the values, right? So let's see if this is working. Add to do, let's go to our Redux and let's add, for example, add, start, and fail. To do that push is not, okay, what am I doing wrong? Okay, I forgot to save this. So to do is Firestore array, and this will create a new array and we'll update, push it to our array. Fail. Firestore, oh, I'm missing here field value. Okay, and you can read the Firestore documentation about this. So let's add, it should now add what am I doing wrong? Oh, it's not set, it's update. So to-dos from this user, fire store. I think it's field value. Oh, it's capital letter, so it's field value. Okay, now it's sending it, and we don't need this here. I was just testing. Okay, so basically I changed this to update because when you add the to-dos, you want to be updating your array of to-dos, right? So update, and now we should have a document from the user ID. So to-dos, this is my user ID. Now on to-dos, you see I have my to-dos here, and I can, for example, write test, add, should be there. Okay, test. But the problem is you can't have an object inside here with this method. Okay, so if you want to remove, for example, test, you would need to, for example, remove, and it's array remove, and then you need to do something like this. So this would remove this one, but you might have to-dos with the same text, for example. So the best way to remove it is to give it a unique ID. Okay, so let's do that next. And for that, what we will do is here, for example, since we can't use this method because we want to have an object inside, so what we can do is we can get our, instead of using this to update our array, we can first get our current to-dos. Okay, so we can say const, for example, res will be equal to firestore dot and now collection will be to-dos, right? So to-dos on the doc from the logged in user. So doc, this is the same user ID, and now I can say dot get, and this will get me this. This is a promise, right? So I need to await, and this will get me my to-dos now. And now to see my to-dos, for let's say we need to do, for example, res dot data, and now we will execute this, and now inside our data we have our to-dos. So to-dos, and we should have our to-dos now. When this action creator runs, we should log all our to-dos. So let's add one, and let's go to our console, and you see we have an array of our to-dos. And now we can take, since we have our array here, we can, for example, take this array here and push a new one to it. Okay, so we can push an object inside it, and that will do what we want, which is to have a unique ID on each of our to-do. So each to-do will be an object with the text for the to-do and the unique ID. And for example, I'm not going to do it, but you could add another property called, for example, done. So if your to-do is done or not. Okay, now that we have our array of to-dos here, what we can say is we can say const new to-dos, or we actually can say const new to-do, and this is an object, right, where we will spread, or we can, yeah, we don't need to spread, we can just say that here it's the data dot to do, right? We can say, for example, that the to do it's this, and then we can say that the ID, and here we could use some packets to generate some unique IDs, but I'm just going to use new date dot value of, and this will most likely give you a unique ID. So if we log this, for example, let me go here, if we console.log this, okay, this is most likely a unique ID. Okay, so it's good enough for this. And now we have our new to do, and what we can say is say that our to-dos, this will be an array where we can spread the res dot data dot to-dos, right? And then here we will have our new to-do. So new to-do. Okay, so now basically we get our actual to-dos, our current to-dos here, and we have them here, right? I'm going to delete this. Then our new to-do, it's an object, right? Because we want all of our to-dos to be an object with an unique ID and our the to-do. And again, you can add something like done here, which will be default to false, and then on the front end Here you could make a checkbox to click to mark it as done and maybe put a line over it, but I'm just going to make the functionality of it to add to-dos and remove them, okay? But you can totally do this. So our new to-do is an object, and then you go again to the collection to-dos, to the document of the current logged user, and you update it, and you say that the property to-dos will be an array where you spread your old to-dos and you add the new one, okay? And this should be working, I think. Let's test it. So now, for example, here it's all text. Now we should have now it's all text, but now when we send one, we should have a new one, which will be an object with the ID. So let's try this. Add. Okay, success, and let's see. Okay, and now we have our new to-do that already has an ID that we can use to delete it and have our to-do, okay? So what we can do next is here, not here, we can already have access to our loading. If you pay attention here, when we are sending a to-do, on the start we set the loading to true, and on the success we set it to false, and we have our error too, right? On our state to-dos we have our errors, so we can already show that here. Okay, so here we can get the to-do, it's to-dos, and then here we can say loading, it's on to-dos.loading, and error is on to-dos.error, right? And now we pass that here instead of null, and now here we have access on our props to the loading, to the error, and now it's more of the same. For example, we send our to-do and our button, we can say that loading, if exists loading, we can say adding, otherwise nothing. On our error we can uncomment this, so uncomment this, and we show our error if there is an error. Okay, and this is looking good to me. Let's see if it works. So again, we add another added. Okay, so another to-do, awesome, adding. Now if you go here, we have our to-dos here as objects. Okay, so now what we can do is let's make our pop-up close when the to-do is successfully added. Okay, so let's do that. Let's just check our error message in a second, and for that I'm going to type something here that doesn't exist at all on Firebase. So now I should get an error. Okay, let's just change the position of it, so maybe bottom, let's make it 0. Okay, so let's just fix this minor styling detail. So now to do bottom message wrapper bottom 0. Okay, so let's now close our pop-up when our to-do is sent. To do that, to close the pop-up when the to-do is added successfully, what you can do is, for example, here you can, let's just return true, right? So if nothing goes wrong, we return true. Here we try to do all of this, and if nothing goes wrong, we dispatch success and we return true. Now here we await for it, so we can this will return true or false, right? Or undefined, which will be false. So we can say if there is res, so if there is, it's true, right? So if it was successfully, we can say set is opened false, and this should work. See, there is no error, it closed. Let's now make it have an error, so let's go here and add here something that doesn't exist at all, just to see if we don't close it. Okay, and it's working, right? Another thing you can do is, for example, instead delete this, instead of managing the states of the pop-up here, you can do that in your reducer too. So here in your to-dos reducer, you can say, for example, pop up opened or add opened or something, and when you click on the button on here to-dos, when you click on the add to do, sorry, when you click on the add to do button, this will dispatch an action, right? That would change that is opened to true, And then here you could check that property if it's opened or not, and if it's opened you can basically pass that to the model and that open the model, right? So instead of managing the state here, you could do it on your Redux store. I'm just doing it here because I prefer it, and to check if it was successfully sent here, we can just do that. Okay, so now we can add to-dos, so another to-do, and it's added. It closed the pop-up. We go here, another to-do, everything is working. Let's now start on showing our to-dos to the user on our to-dos page. Okay, so now to get the to-dos from the current logged user here, first we should create like an individual component for the to-do itself, right? So what we can do is, and maybe, yeah, okay, it can be here. So let's create a folder called to-do, and then here we can say new file called todo.js, and I'm creating this under the containers folder because all of this will have like state. Okay, maybe I should move this to the components. We'll see in the end. So let's just create a React, and then this will receive the to-do itself. And for now that's okay. So we can say, for example, remember the to-do is an object, so I can let's just print a p, and we can say to-do dot, and it's to-do, right? I think, I'm not sure. Let's go here, to-do dot to-do. Okay, so we get our to-dos, and then we get this object, which we will call to-do when we pass it, and then inside it there is the to-do. So this is okay for now, just for testing purposes. We can actually close this for now. So now here we can render our to-dos, right? And to get our to-dos here, we could, for example, we could create an action creator that we would run, like when this component mounts for the first time, we could run that action creator and get the to-dos. But this package, the React Redux Firebase, it has something called, if you go to the Firestore here and just scroll down, where is it? Okay, so you have the Firestore Connect, which is a React iOrder component. And basically, if you see the example here, you can compose the Firestore Connect with the connect, right, from Redux. And then when you wrap your component with the Firestore Connect, you can subscribe, for example, to the collection to-dos, right? And then this will basically give you on your reducer the to-dos that you subscribe to here. Okay, so I'm going to use this, and if you see here, where is it? Okay, if you go here to the Firestore Connect, right, which is what we want, you go to the Firestore Connect, you can see warning, not here, here. Make sure you have required imported Cloud Firestore, which we are importing, right? If you remember here, or in our Firebase, we import the Firestore and we initiate it here. And for example, if you go to our store, we are actually also initializing it here with the Firebase, so Redux Firestore. Another thing we need to do, if you read it here, it's including its reducer. Okay, so we need to add another reducer. Now, if you go to our root reducer here, we only have the Firebase reducer, but we actually need the Firestore reducer. And it's pretty simple. If you go, where were we? Here, you can see that you can import the Firestore reducer from Redux Firestore. Okay, and here they are just making everything on the same file. I like to split stuff. So you can see that we have our config here. This is on our root reducer here, because I like to have a separate file to have our reducers. Okay, so now we can just import Firestore reducer from Redux Firestore. So import Firestore, Firestore reducer from Redux Firestore. Now it's Firestore reducer. Okay, and now what we can say, like you see here, where is it? Here you can say that basically here you can have another reducer called Firestore, where you can pass this reducer. And now if you go to our app, we should have another piece of state on our app state, and you have the Firestore here. Okay, and now to subscribe, like we saw here, where was it? Okay, so here on these examples, you can see that on your component you can import Firestore Connect. So let's close this, and here on our to-dos, let's import Firestore Connect, and this is from React Redux Firebase. React Redux Firebase. So we have this component, and we actually need to import compose too, so we can basically compose together the connect and the Firestore Connect, basically like we did here on our store. So this is basically the compose, which basically just takes several stuff and joins it together. Okay, more or less. So here we can say import, and it's compose from Redux. Okay, and now we can compose these two together. So now here, okay, we also need to import the connect here, right? Because we want to have access to our state here. This is where we get our to-dos, and then we will pass them to the to-dos here. So then we can just create those two consts again, and now this is our state. Okay, let's leave it empty for now, and now we can just say connect, right? Like we always do, and we can do this. So map state to props and map dispatch to props. Okay, this is what we normally do with Redux. But now you can see that to use this, what we need to do is to use the compose. So basically here we can say compose. So compose, this is a function. Oops, and inside this function, you basically cut the connect and you paste it here, right? So we have the connect here, and then you can say here Firestore Connect, so Firestore Connect, and this is a function where you pass in an array, right? And with the collection you want to subscribe. So in this case, it's to-dos, and we need a comma here. Let's save this. And another thing that we are missing is, where was it? So it doesn't make sense that we subscribe to all to-dos, right? It doesn't make sense that we can subscribe to all to-dos. So basically what we need to do is subscribe to the to-dos only from the user that that is logged in, right? So only the user that is logged in. And you can say that we can do that, for example, here. You can say collection to-dos or your collection and the doc, or you can simply say, like you saw here, we can simply say, for example, wait, an array, okay, where you can simply use backticks, and you can use JavaScript here. So you can say, and here we want to have access to our current logged in user. So how can we do that? So I was getting an error to upgrade to version 3 basically of this package. This package already has version 3, but that would be too much work. So what I did was I downgraded my React Redux. So you can say npm install, and then you can say react/redux, and then you do this and you install version 5.0. Okay, and that will fix the error. I'm not going to go over and migrate to version 3.0 because that will be a lot of work, and we are almost finished with this tutorial. Okay, so we are downgrading our version. Now we can stop our server and we can start our server again. Now what we can do is here basically order matters. Okay, so here I will show you why, because here basically you can pass a function into it that will receive the props from your components. So here, okay, so what we can actually do here is we can get our user ID, right? So on Firebase, and we can say user ID, it's on firebase.auth.uid, correct? And then here we can we can get a function that will get the props, right? And the props is basically the props from the component, so we have access to this. So we can now here return the array, and we can say backticks, and we can say that we want a collection to-dos and slash from this user only. Okay, so oops, so from the props dot user ID only. Okay, and now so for this to work, for us to have access to these props here, we have to use the connect first. Okay, so connect, and then so it connects first, and then this will have access to our props. Okay, so basically we compose the connect function with the Firestore connect. We receive a function that we will have access to our props. On our props we can send the user ID, and then we just ask for the collection of to-dos with this user ID. Okay, with this user ID. And now basically on, let's save this on this component. If we go here, and if you go to Redux, if you go to state, if you go to Firestore, and now you see here on Firestore you have data, and on data you have to-dos, and on to-dos you have your user and you have your to-dos here. Okay, and basically you can have you have also the status here, where you can see if it's requesting or not. So requesting false, requested true. So you can say basically if it's requesting loading, if requested true, and for example data.todos.user ID dot length is empty, means the user has no to-dos. Okay, and to show you that we are only really subscribing to the data of this user, for example, let's actually get here the Firestore, and let's log console, let's log fire, so firestore.data, for example. Now we should have, oops, where is it? It's on Firestore. Oh, right, to have access to this here, remember, we need to pass it here. So we can say to-dos, for example, and this is on Firestore, right? So we can destructor here Firestore, and we can say Firestore dot, and it's dot data, and you can also have ordered data here. Just gonna use the data for now, data dot to-dos. Okay, and now here we log this to-dos. We have an object which with our user as a key, and then inside it you have the to-dos, and all our to-dos are here. And to show that we are only really subscribing to the to-dos from this user, for example, I created just a random number here, and you can see that we are only getting this now. Let's try to get only this. So let's hard code this. Let's go here, and instead of passing the user ID, if we pass this, now we should have only this. Let's see. And you can see we have only that now. Okay, so let's now make the loaders work. So say loading if we are fetching the to-dos, and to say you have no to-dos if the request was done, but the length of the array is 0. Okay, so let's do that next. So now to our state here we can pass loading, right, which will basically be if you go here to your state, to Firestore status, basically loading is if it's requesting, right? So we can say Firestore dot status dot requesting, correct? That exactly. And then we can also say, for example, fetched, and it's on this will be Firestore dot status dot requested, right? So requested, we have that here. So on Firestore status requested, and now we can get that on our state. So on our props, I mean, loading and requested. And let's just try something now. We can import our loader here later. So if loading, if loading, we can let's just return for now loading. If basically if requested and so, and now if requested, right, and our to-dos, and now on to-dos, remember we have our user ID, so to-dos dot, and we can have access to our user ID here too. So if to-dos dot user ID and then is dot to-dos again dot length is equal to 0, that means that it requested, it finished the requested, but it's empty, right? So we can return you have no to-dos. Okay, and we will pass that maybe here later. What can we do more? Yeah, and actually we can do it like this. So for example, we can say const to-dos, and that will be equal to, and then we can cut this and paste that here. What am I doing wrong? Oh, we are already. So we can say, let's say content. Const render, it's equal to, and now, of course, we can't use this here. So we can basically do it like, yeah, we can do this. We can, for example, say let content, okay, and if loading, then content will be equal to this. If then if this content will be equal to this. And now content. Otherwise, we will render our to-dos here later. Okay, so else we can say content equals to you. Let's say you have to-dos, and let's actually make it, for example, you have. Let's say how many they have. So okay. So if else if we can say else if this, else this. Okay, and now we can just render the content here, right? Let's see if this is working. So loading, and it isn't working because we already have them here. So let's see what's wrong. So if loading and loading is, and yeah, actually here it's not like this, it's like this, because this is dynamic. Okay, so it's like this. So why is loading true at first? If loading, we are always rendering loading. So, and loading is first order status at requesting, but it should be false now. Oh, okay. So if you log loading, so log loading, that's not really a boolean. Yeah. So we can basically say if loading dot to-dos on the slash, wait, if loading, we must have an easier way to do this. Let's see. Okay, so here we were doing something wrong. Let's basically call it requesting here, requested. Okay, so now what we can do is we can go here, for example, and let's say let's content. Let's say if, now here it's requesting. Let's now if requesting, right? And okay, so after some debugging, what I did was basically here todos will be firestore data.todos, requesting will be firestore status requesting, and requested will be firestore status requested. Now basically here I'm logging the todos, the requesting, and the request. And let's see. So now I have no todos, and basically you can see that while it is requesting, so requesting it's true, the todos is always undefined, right? So what we can firstly say is if there isn't todos, means it's loading, right? So let's log loading. Then after there are todos, so for example here there are todos, but now they are empty, and the requested it's true. So what we can say is if there are todos and the length of the todos on the position and it's todos on the position of on the key of the user ID. So if there aren't anything here, so if this is undefined and it has finished requested, so and requested and now requested on the key todos slash our user ID, so on the key todos slash our user ID, right? So if this is true, it has already finished requested, but if if this is undefined, it means there are no to do. So you have no to do's, and let's see if we are seeing this correctly. Cannot read property of an undefined. Oh, it's not if, it's else if, right? Okay, so now we are loading. You have no to do's. Let's add a to do here, and let's say else you have to do's. Let's log you have to do's. We shouldn't see this. You have no to do's. Let's add one. Add. Cannot read property to do's of undefined. Oh, right. So we have found a bug in our app. So basically on our action creator here, so here we try basically, where is it? It's here. So we are trying to update. I think it's here. Let's try set and see if this fixes it. Cannot read property to do's of undefined. Why? Where are we trying to do? Oh, it's here. Okay, so we can actually leave here update, and here we are trying to spread the to-dos that we get, right? But we don't have any now. So what we can basically say is, so we get our res here, so to-dos of undefined. Let's see what res gives us here. So res. Let's see what gives us. Yeah, because there is no data. So what we can say basically is, let's, for example, if and this doesn't exist. So if this doesn't exist, let's log no to-dos need to create. Let's see. So no to-dos. Okay. So if there isn't any data, what we can say is we can basically say that our to-dos will basically be just our new to-do, right? And we can say else. So if we have already to-dos, we can dispatch this one. Okay, and this should be working. And let's see. Let's add a to adding no document to update. Okay, maybe, yeah, if we don't have, we should use set. Think. Okay, and now it is working. We send one and we have already here. You have to do this, right? So you have to do this. Let's actually clear our console and reload this. Loading, you have to do this. And if we go here now, so let's reload this. Now we fix this bug. So this is basically done. When we have no data, so we have no to-dos on our array, we create it. We pass it only our to-dos, our first to-do, right? If we have data, we just update and we spread the rest of them. Okay, so now this is working. We have our two to-dos that we added here. Let's now take care of the message here. So we are basically here on our to-dos. We can delete this. Let's say now let content. Let's basically say content here is equal to loading, and here it's equal to you have no to-dos, so you have no to-dos, else you have to-dos, else you have to do. Okay, this took us a while, right? Let's now render here the content and let's see if everything works. And it is working. You have to-dos. We reload, we have to-dos. Let's delete this collection. To-dos. And let's see. You have no to-do. So now everything is working. Let's actually make our loader appear here. So we can import our loader here. So let's do that. Let's import loader from, and it's on our components, components /UI /loader. Let's render our loader here. So let's render our loader. Let's see. Okay, we see our loader there. We could maybe pass it some prop to make the loader white, right? But I'm not going to do that now. Here we can render and adding, for example, you have no to-dos, and we can say that the color will be white, right? We need the size, so size will be equal to, it can be an h2. Let's see. We have no to-dos. Okay, we can basically create another, so const, what can we call this? I want a wrapper to show this. Let's say, I don't know. Content. It's a style div, which basically will be display flex direction column, margin top to rem. So let's now wrap our loader. Let's wrap our loader here, and let's delete this log. Let's wrap our adding, so content, wrap our adding. Let's see if everything works. Okay, let's see if our loader still shows. Okay, and I'm actually going to refactor our loader just a little bit. So let's go to our loader, and here we can get color, and we can pass the color. Let's just make it receive is white, so is white, and we can say here is white equal to is white, just to make it make it white if we need it. And where are we using the color? So border here, color main. So what we can say here, I'm just going to duplicate this. What we can say here is we get here our props, so props, and we can distract here the is white, right? And we can say if is white, var now it's slash color white, otherwise it's var color main. Okay, what am I missing here? So we have a function, I get is white, I receive here the is white this. Okay, there was no error. And now we can copy this and we can use it here. And where are we using the color? Oops, what have I done? Wait, the border color, why is this wrong? So if it's white, we want it white, otherwise we, oh, I copied the semicolon. So if it's white, then okay. And now if I pass it is white to our loader, it should show white. Let's see. Okay, looking better now. Now basically what we can do is, if we have to-dos, we have our to-do here, right? That receives the to-do. So we can basically map through our array and show the to-dos. So let's import to-do from, and now on the same folder, to-do. Then what we can say is basically the array is to-dos. So to-dos on the position user ID dot to-dos dot map, I think, and for each to-do we call our to-do and we pass in the to-do. Okay, I think this is it. Let's try it. Add. Okay, one, another to-do, and another to. Okay, and we can basically make this better. Basically here we need the key, so for each to-do we need to pass in a key, so, and the key can be the to-do dot ID. Okay, and now it shouldn't complain about that. Not complaining. So now we are already fetching our to-dos for this user and showing them here. We have our loader. If we don't have to-dos, we get that message. Let's now style our to-do single item better now. So now to style this better, what I'm going to do is, let's go to our to-do here. So to-do, we can import style. So import style from styled components. Now, for example, we can say const wrapper, and this will be a style.div. And then what this will have is, let's make it with 100%. Let's make it padding at the top 2, and maybe it's at sides 3 rem. We'll see this later. So background color. Let's make it var color. And let's use that that light blue now, so main lighter. This one. And let's box shadow. We can make it 0 rem, 0.5 rem, 3.5 rem, var shadow. And wrap our to-do in it. Okay, now what we can do, give it some padding, so I mean margin, and we can say margin. We can actually say if it's not the last one, we can give it still. So let's say margin bottom to rem, and let's give it a border radius of 1 rem. Let's see. Okay, looking better. Maybe 0.5. Okay, maybe we can give it 3 rem here. Okay, it looks better. Now we can give it some margin top here. So I'm going to go to our to-dos here and on our content, right? On our content. Oh, we didn't wrap. Yeah, I was thinking something was weird. So basically, I can basically wrap this. Basically, content not here. So I can say content, then here I have to write JavaScript and basically to do and here I don't need this and I don't need this. So basically content will be the content, and then I write JavaScript for each to do. I'm going to return this. So for each to do I'm going to return this. Then I stop writing JavaScript and I wrap my content. Wait, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I have to do it like this and this. Now this, like this, and now it should for each to this. What's wrong here? So for each, oh, I need to close the function here. Okay. And now the content will have the wrapper, and we write JavaScript inside it, and for each to do we return this to do. Okay. Okay, looking better. Now I need to give a width of 100% to our content. So width, not windows, width 100%. Okay. We can, yeah, we can center our text maybe, and maybe this is too wide. So what we can say here, we can say, let's actually use here max width. No, let's say width 100%, and let's say max width. Let's give it 60 rem. 60 rem. Okay, better. Now let's style our font a bit. So now to do, you can say font size 1.4 rem. Okay, so color bar, and you probably saw the loader was not centered. We'll take care of that in a second. So color white, color. Okay, why is the loader not centered? Because we need to make it here line items center. Okay, we can make it maybe the font a little bit bolder, so font height we can make it maybe 500, maybe 700. Okay, what can we do more? We can maybe align the text here to the center. I don't know, and this is all styling. I'm not going to keep wasting a lot of time on it. Okay, so let's maybe a little more margin. Okay, this is looking good to me. We can add to-dos, another to-do, and let's have a really big one. Okay, this looks fine to me. So we have our to-dos. What we're going to do on the next part is add the ability for the user to delete a to-do and to edit a to-do. And to edit a to-do, it makes sense that we can reuse this pop-up, right? But instead of saying add your new to-dos, we will say edit your to-dos. I'm already seeing a bug here. So this is not clearing. Why is this not clearing? To fix this bug that we are having here, where the you write something, then we open the pop-up and it's still here, the text, you can just reset the form. So here you have another property called reset form, and it's a function. And after we submit and after we close the module, we can reset the form. Now it should reset it and make the text disappear. So let's see, add, okay, it's working. And now we have our to-dos here. When we reload, we'll fetch them from our Firestore, and on our Firestore, if we reload here and we go to our to-dos, we should have all of our to-dos here. So in this user, we should have an array with all of them, okay? So in the next part, we will take care of the user editing and deleting to-dos.